Hello, good evening. My name is Richard. This is Over and Over and Over Again, and we've got a special show, for you tonight. It is the opposition view, looking ahead, of course, to tomorrow's game against Bournemouth. So it's going to be a good show. We've got Bournemouth fan Craig joining us. So stay with us. It's going to be a good show. Starting the other side of this. So good evening and welcome to the show. Craig, how are you tonight? You all right?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, Richard. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. I was looking forward to the weekend and some football, of course, as always. It's back into it all again. Just before we get started, really, just obviously give your channel a little shout out because you've got you do some work over on a Bournemouth channel, don't you?
Yep, certainly. So our channel is called Up the Cherries in All Departments. So it's abbreviated UTCIAD for short. We've had loads of special guests. We had Harry Redknapp come on and do a season preview show with us. It's 2.5 hours long, so you might want to watch it in parts, but that's really, really interesting. We've also got a former chairman of the club coming on. That's coming up on Sunday. We've had former players as well, like Steve Cook, Steve Fletcher. And we've got a full interview with Harry as well. So there's loads and loads of content on there, as well as doing our podcast, which is cherry picking, which is a little bit of fun. So if you want to know anything about Bournemouth during the troubled times, do come check us out.
No, that sounds fantastic. Actually, I mean, I had an ex-player on the show the other night, actually, Eddie McGoldrick. So it's good to speak to him, isn't it? Because to get an insight into what things were like when they played and stuff like that. So it's always good stuff. We've got a comment there from Bitsgunner81 says, "Good afternoon and evening, everyone." Yep, and to yourself, mate. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you're well. Just before we kind of look ahead to the game, I mean, just sort of give you obviously your own kind of memories of Bournemouth. I mean, when was your first game down at Dean Court?
Oh, crikey. It was in the -17 season. I'm originally from Reading, which is quite a funny one because my family are all Reading fans. And I moved down here and started supporting the local club when you thought, well, we're not going to be anywhere near the Premier League. We're going to be more near the National League. To be fair, we was really in dire straits. We started the season with Kevin Bond. Kevin Bond left the club. Then Jimmy Quinn come in. And there was lots of stories around Jimmy Quinn and, you know, what he was like. And yeah, then, of course, Sir Eddie took over.
He did, and obviously, you know, amazing success that he brought to you guys, didn't he? Getting you in the Premier League and stuff like that. So who would be your favourite ever Bournemouth player then? Would it be someone quite recent, I would assume?
I would say Steve Fletcher. Steve Fletcher's got to be for that goal, for, you know, the whole aura that he brings around the place as well, around the club. So yes, definitely Steve Fletcher.
Yeah, obviously he was a great player. And what about your best memory, your best Bournemouth memory? Would it be promotion at the end of last season, maybe?
I would say promotion in 2015. It was completely unexpected. It was a team built of misfits by Eddie Howe. Players that like Charlie Daniels. You've got Steve Cook. Steve Cook, who, you know, was not playing under Paul Groves. Eddie Howe brought him in, and then from there on in, you know, he was ever present until Scott Parker come through the door. So, yeah, I would say it was that season. Mark Pugh as well. Mark Pugh, really cheap signing from Hereford. You know, when he, you know, he really took the Premier League by storm last time round.
Yeah, I mean, I actually I used to work for Football League newspaper years ago, and I remember covering a game, Carlisle against Bournemouth. I think it was probably in League One. David James played in goal for Bournemouth, actually.
Yeah.
All them years ago. I think Mark Pugh played in that game, actually. So he kind of came up the divisions with you, didn't he? So that, you know, Bournemouth always been. It's funny, really, because probably, you know, I don't know, even when I started sort of doing podcasts and stuff, like, I never thought I'd be doing a match preview in a Premier League game with a Bournemouth fan. You know, I never thought Bournemouth would be in the Premier League. But anyway, you know, it's fantastic that you are again. Obviously, Eddie Howe, as you mentioned there, I mean, he had such a massive impact, didn't he, on the club as a player previously and also as a manager. Of course, it's been a couple of years sort of since he went, but obviously Scott Parker came in last year. I mean, what have you made of the impact that he's had at the club? Obviously, brought you success straight away, really.
He did, yeah. To be fair, when he first got to the club, we got 37 points from our first 15 games in the Championship. And to be fair, for the first couple of games, he had a little bit of a disjointed squad. It was a squad that we had injuries to. Chris Metham was suspended after the injury against Brentford. Sorry, the suspension against Brentford, I should say, where Mbembo ran through, pulled him down. So, yeah, we had troubles from the off last season, but he did so well, managed it so well. And, you know, we were quite impressed with what he did. I would say, though, the wheels did fall off a little bit. We had some poor games. It was after Gary Cahill come in. We started the season with Zeno Ibsen Rossi at the back. He's now at Cambridge, but for those 4 games, he did very, very well. Then Gary Cahill come in and got injured against Millwall. And it was around about that sort of time where it just fell apart a little bit. We got beat by Preston twice. We always get beat by Preston. They're just our bogey side. We can just never beat them. And we did question whether or not he had a plan B. This was something that Fulham fans warned us about beforehand. And I think, you know, I think in a way that we were a little bit concerned that we, at points, we weren't going to actually keep hold of those top 2 spots we'd been in all season.
Yeah, but of course, obviously, in the end, it was quite a close run thing, wasn't it? The automatic promotion.
Close. Yeah, too close, to be fair. Well, full credit to Nottingham Forest and what they actually did, because they were bottom of the league. We played them second last season, and we went away to the City Ground. We went down to 10 men and won the game 2-1. And they looked poor. They looked very, very poor under Chris Hughton. They were still bottom. I think they had 1 point after 7 games. And then they replaced him with Steve Cooper. And, well, the rest they say is history. But it was too close in the end. Of course, it was against Nottingham Forest. And it's quite a funny story, actually, thinking back to it. We was meant to be playing them at the end of February. And at the end of February, of course, we had Storm Eunice, and we were quite badly hit down here. So the game was postponed. And then it was decided that it was going to be the penultimate game of the season. It was going to be on a Tuesday night. And we didn't expect it to come to this, but we got to that game and it was pretty much all or nothing. If we had got beaten then, you know, they did draw against Hull last game of the season, Forest, but you know, I'm guessing that they were just preparing for the playoffs. If we had got beaten, they probably would have taken that second spot. But we did, you know, we managed that game well. And one thing we did find out in that running was that Parker did have a plan B, unlike he did at Fulham. And I think that's what gives us a little bit of confidence this season is Parker's side this year is a lot different to the one that he had with Fulham. And the plan B was Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore was injured. He come in January, and he really changed the games for us. He was very good against Blackburn, where we won 3-0. He was very, very good against Swansea. He come on, and we were 3-0 down. Swansea are a funny one, because they've got very, very good attack, but very, very poor defence. It's like the polar opposites at either side, and he took advantage of that and got it back to 3-0. That was a vital point. And then against Forest, he was the one that scored the goal. A lovely pass, from a free kick by Billing, and one touch, and Kiefer Moore's put in the back of the net. So yeah, I think I can't knock Parker, for that end to the season and how we've started this year as well.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been a decent start. I mean, I think maybe a lot of the neutrals last season were probably backing Nottingham Forest to go up because of the FA Cup run that they had. Obviously,
Yeah,
they beat us in the third round. They beat was it Leicester as well, wasn't it? And
yeah,
gave Liverpool a close game. And I think a lot of people were kind of wanting Nottingham Forest to get promoted, because they'd been out of the top fight for so long. And Bournemouth maybe slipped out of people's sort of mind a little bit. Everyone was thinking Forest would get promoted. Of course, they did in the end through the playoffs anyway, so it kind of worked out well for everyone, didn't it? I guess.
yeah.
But I mean, Forest beat us in the FA Cup, and that was, Terry puts a comment in the chat there. We played Forest, and they made us look rubbish. Yeah, they did. We were terrible that night and got knocked out of the FA Cup. So, but yeah, I mean, I suppose ultimately Scott Parker's done the job he was brought in to do, which is get you guys back in the Premier League. So, I mean, what do you make of his style of play? Obviously, it seems to be, I mean, I didn't watch much of Bournemouth last season, obviously in the Championship, but it seems to be a different style to obviously Eddie Howe's kind of football that he used to get you guys to play when he was there. Would you say that's fair, or has he tried to replicate that a little bit?
I would say that's fair. At the early part of last season, I thought that he did show a little bit more attacking intent. As you could probably remember, Eddie Howe's philosophy was that we'll score one more than you. It
Yeah.
did mean that we did get beat, quite heavily at times, but
Mm.
also it meant that, we would surprise teams. We beat Liverpool 4-3.
I remember
Um,
that, yeah.
drew against Everton 3-all. Of course, we did beat Arsenal in 2018, and it's quite funny. Jordan Ibe scored one of his only goals for the club during that game as well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he was pretty decent that day. You probably thought that we had a player on our hands, but yeah, I can assure you we definitely didn't. But yeah, I would say that was Eddie's philosophy was the more attacking mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
I think where it went a little bit wrong was in that last season. And of course, COVID curtailed this as well. We did suffer because of COVID. We suffered because of Hawkeye. We suffered because of VAR. One particular game, which I groan on about and everybody tells me to shut up about, is against Burnley. So we went 1-0 down, and Burnley were on the attack, and it was quite a quick breakaway. It was probably about 2 minutes, and we went up the other end and scored, brought it back to 1-all. Now, whilst Burnley were on the attack, the ball had come in and had been adjudged to have touched Adam Smith's hand. So,
Yeah, I
of
remember
course, the
that, yeah.
goal's been chalked off, and they've given a penalty to Burnley. So we've gone 2-0 down. And after that, just the players' heads dropped.
Mm.
Um, but going back to how Eddie's philosophy changed that season, we started off the year quite well. We beat Southampton at St Mary's, which was brilliant.
Yeah, I
As
can
you can
imagine.
probably imagine, we absolutely
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah.
Um, but he went to a little bit more of a defensive mindset, and controlling the game. And although we weren't conceding as many as we did before, because we conceded quite a lot of goals, really, in our prior 4 seasons to that,
Yeah.
um, we weren't really scoring either.
Mm.
And I think that was one of the things that Eddie changed, which probably wasn't right. Of course, COVID happened. In fact, going into that COVID period, we drew 2-2 against Chelsea. We actually went 1-0 up against Liverpool, of course, the eventual champions.
Mm.
And it was, to be honest, they were quite lucky to win that game. I think a draw would have been a fair result. Their fans probably would have said it as well. Of course, straight after that game, COVID's come in, season has been suspended. When we come back to it, we were beaten 3-0 by Crystal Palace. We got beat heavily by Newcastle. We just didn't seem to be able to get things moving. And it was only we beat Spurs.
Yeah,
Oh no, we drew against Spurs. Sorry, we beat Leicester, and of course we beat Everton last game of the season.
yeah.
But it just wasn't enough. I think it was a frustrating end to the season, and COVID did not help us at all.
No, it was a difficult season. Of course, it was the game between obviously Arsenal when we visited Bournemouth that season on Boxing Day was actually Mikel Arteta's first game as Arsenal manager. That's the last
Yeah,
time we played you guys in the league. We did play in the FA Cup, of course, a couple of months later, but just seems strange that that's where Mikel Arteta started his Arsenal journey. I mean, what have you made of Mikel Arteta at Arsenal? Obviously, it's been 2.5 years now, or we're coming up to 3 years, obviously at Christmas. So what have you made of the job that he's done at Arsenal? It seems like now things are falling into place a little bit, but it's taken a long time, hasn't it? I mean, from the outside, what have you? I know obviously you wasn't in the Premier League the last couple of years, but what have you made of the job he's done overall?
I think overall it was always going to be a difficult man to follow in Arsene Wenger's footsteps. But then again, Arsene Wenger, um, I think he fell foul of that invincible season. That invincible season was amazing. That squad was brilliant. Um, and then after that, it just seemed like a steady decline. And I think Arteta's got things pointing in the right direction now. He's had to slowly make the changes, but it looks like everything's fallen into place this year. I don't know about the midfield. The midfield does still have some question marks around it for me. Granit Xhaka, for example, I know he's not particularly too popular with some fans, but I think going forwards, Martinelli, you've got Gabriel Jesus now as well. So I think things are looking up. And of course, you got Rambo in goal, and Rambo
Yeah,
was brilliant for us. Absolutely, you know, during that season, to be fair, it was only one season that he actually played. And actually, to bring up the game, sorry, it was year up beforehand. We beat Spurs. And
right.
we played Mark Travers in goal that day. And of course, Mark Travers is our number one now.
Yeah, yeah,
And, he had a really, really good game. And we thought, wow, yeah, he's going to be nailed on for the following season. And then Ramsdale, you know, come in for the first game of the season and then kept that place forever ever since. And, yeah, a very, very impressive goalkeeper. Would you say he's England number one or should be England number one? I do.
I mean, obviously, it seems as though Jordan Pickford has that job nailed down. It seems, I mean, to be fair to Jordan Pickford, as much as he seems very inconsistent at club level, for England, he's never really let England down, has he, to be fair, when
Yeah.
he's played. And I think it's difficult. It's going to be difficult for any goalkeeper to get that place off him. I mean, I felt a little bit. I mean, when Aaron Ramsdale first came to Arsenal a year or so ago, at the start of last season, he was
Yeah.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And, a lot of people were thinking, why did we sign him? The relegation with you guys, the relegation with Sheffield United the year after, and all this kind of stuff. And I think that people were a little bit wondering why we bought him. And he started off so well. And I think, right, we can see now this is why we bought him, because he's a very good goalkeeper. But I think really since maybe the turn of the year,
Yeah.
and even going into this season, he's become a little bit inconsistent. he's making some silly mistakes. His concentration's maybe not quite always there. And I mean, the 2 goals we conceded against Leicester last week, for example, you could look at the goalkeeper on both of them actually. And yes, it didn't matter. We won the game. No one's that bothered in that particular game. But there's going to be other games where if he does that against a Liverpool or a Manchester City, or even maybe tomorrow, it could be a mistake that costs us points and ultimately could prove crucial. So I think he's got a little bit more improvement. So he's still young, and he's a very good goalkeeper. And yeah, I've just got a little bit of just a couple of little doubts have crept in over the last few months with some of his performances and some of the. I don't know whether he believed his hype a little bit too much when he first come in. I'm not sure. I mean, he's still young, isn't he? And you know, he's still learning. And I think he will become a very, very good goalkeeper. And I think at some point he will become England's #1. Whether it'll be for this World Cup, I'm not sure. I think that might be too quick, because I do think Pickford, unless he gets injured, I think has got that slot pretty much nailed down, because he hasn't let England down, as I said. You know,
no, he hasn't. To be fair, as much as I want Rambo to be #1. To be honest, Pickford hasn't let England down. He was quite good during the Euros. I think he's been better for England than he has for Everton. Really, Jordan Pickford.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. Yeah, definitely. So on that basis, you would imagine that Gareth Southgate isn't going to drop him from the England team unless he was to have an absolute disaster for Everton between now and the World Cup. I'd imagine he will be #1. But I mean, I'm sure Ramsdale will be just pleased to be included in the squad to the World Cup. I'm sure that'll be his aim at the moment. And then you never know. Once you're in the squad, anything can happen. So, but yeah, I mean, he's got some improvements to make, definitely. And I'm a little bit concerned slightly about his form in recent games. I say the back end of last season and so far this season. He made a couple of good saves against Palace, which was crucial, but he also made a couple of mistakes against Palace and a couple of mistakes against Leicester. And he just needs to tidy up little aspects of his game. But yeah, I mean, he's always been a great prospect as a goalkeeper. So when he played for Bournemouth, when he was at Sheffield United, it wasn't his fault the 2 teams went down. He was player of the year with you guys that season? I think he was player at Sheffield United, wasn't he?
I believe he was. If I'll have to double check that, but yeah, I'm sure he was. But he was assured. He does play out with his feet from the back. Does give you some nervy moments, but he's a good shot stopper, and I think he will only get better as time goes on as well. And you've got a good goalkeeper on your hands there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that we have, and I don't want to feel like I'm being too harsh on him. He had a great start, and he didn't really maintain that level of consistency all through the season, unfortunately. But hopefully he'll prove. I'm sure he will prove to be a very good goalkeeper. Terry says Pickford should get a lot of practice playing for Everton. Well, I'm sure he does. He will get some practice. Not that he necessarily needs it, but anyway, we'll see how the season works out. But yeah, I mean, obviously the World Cup coming up. Terry says Craig, please don't say that you like Arteta, but you wouldn't want him at Bournemouth. There's a little theme on the show. When I spoke to, particularly last season, when I spoke to fans of other clubs on the channel, I'd always ask them, what do you think of Arteta? Everyone would say, oh yeah, no, he's doing really good. So I would ask them, well, would you have him at your club? No, we don't want him at our club. every single team, even teams that were struggling like Everton and all these other teams last season wouldn't have took Arteta as their manager. I mean, I guess looking at the way things are at the moment, I mean, I guess you would take Arteta at Bournemouth, wouldn't you, if the option was there?
Well, considering what Scott Parker's done so far, we've got to give him his chance. But to be honest, if he was, let's put it this way, Jason Tindall, first season back in the Championship, got off to a good start, but the wheels fell off fairly quickly, and he didn't look like he knew how to change things. We had 2 atrocious games. We got thrashed up at Reading, and then Sheffield Wednesday, who everybody was beating, we got beat 2-1 by. I think, if Arteta was offered to us, and considering Arteta would have been a fairly new manager at that point, and didn't really have all the support of the Arsenal fans, if you turned around and said, would you take Mikel Arteta at that point, I would have bit your hand off,
Mm.
because I think he is he is a good manager. He is a good manager, but I think it's just taking him a little bit longer to get things
Yeah,
moving. And
yeah.
I think you will reap the benefits by persisting with him.
Hopefully, and it certainly seems to be the case at this moment in time as the season started. I mean, have
Yeah.
you watched the All or Nothing documentary that has been going on?
Do you know what? Everybody's been asking me this. I've watched little snippets, but to be honest, I haven't watched it all. But I've heard contrasting things about Arteta's team talks.
Mm,
Some people have been saying, well, he's had to dumb it down a little bit because it's on TV. Some people have said, well, would you really want that man to continue managing a club like Arsenal?
yeah.
Giving team talks like that. So two very contrasting views. I'm a great believer, and not a lot of people know this about Eddie Howe, but Eddie Howe is very, very assured and calm in front of the
Mm,
press. Um, if Eddie wants to lose it, Eddie used to lose it. He was very, very straight up direct with people
mm.
if Eddie needed to. But I think that's how he got the best out of the players. He showed them respect, but if they needed to kick up the backside, he would always do it and had that in his locker.
Mm.
And you'll, by all means, have a watch of the interviews with Fletcher and Steve Cook, and they say pretty much as the same sort of thing as what I've said there.
Yeah, I mean, some of Arteta's stuff in that documentary did make you kind of think to yourself, "Oh my God, what's that?" You sort of, hiding behind your hands and that watching it because it was quite cringy, some of it. But ultimately, he is still a young manager, and he's still. I think he's still, even Scott Parker being in the Premier League. I still think Arteta's the youngest manager in the Premier League because he's
Yeah.
only 40 or 41, isn't he, Arteta? So
Mhm.
he's still learning, and it seems to me Arsenal's a too big a club to be having such an inexperienced manager. But ultimately, they've stuck by him. They've invested in him, given him players he's wanted, and things look as though they're turning. And ultimately, that's what we want as fans, isn't it? All our club, we just
Yeah.
want to see our clubs winning and doing well. And at the moment, it's going well.
Mhm.
So he's got the full support of everybody at the moment, which is great. He didn't have all the time. He hasn't had, to be fair. And I'm sure if Arsenal got rid of him a year or so ago, I don't think too many people would have had too many complaints actually.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I suppose it's maybe it's an example of the fact that if a club gives a manager time and they back them, they
Yeah.
can turn it around, even if it's not looking too good. I mean, the end of the COVID season, no, not the end of the COVID, the season after the COVID, when there was still no fans in, we were really struggling at one point. We were 17th, 16th, 17th in the Premier League, and a lot of clubs would have just sacked him straight away at
Yeah.
that point. But Arsenal didn't. They stuck by him, and now maybe they're going to get rewarded for that patience and stuff like that. So maybe it's a lesson in there for other club chairmen who get rid of managers. Look at Watford, for example, get rid of managers right, left, and centre. Everton's another one, and
Mhm.
maybe it's an example of saying that maybe managers do need a bit more time. And if you invest them, give them the right investment as well, they can hopefully become successful. And if Arteta successful, then it'll kind of maybe encourage other teams maybe in the future not to be so hasty with the button to fire them. Maybe they might hang on to managers a bit longer because it's not often, is it? A manager gets time. Obviously, Eddie Howe was at Bournemouth for a
Yeah.
long time, wasn't he? And he would have probably stayed there longer, wouldn't he? If he'd stayed up, he'd have probably still been there now.
I don't. I think that last game of the season against Everton, he looked at like a very, very broken man, and
Yeah,
I think he felt that a lot of players, one in particular, Ryan Fraser, had let him down because Fraser, and he was tipped, if I'm right in thinking, of going to Arsenal at one point,
yeah,
um, and because of COVID, we are the club asked him to sign a short-term contract. Now, this is only what you actually hear from the outskirts, but um, he refused to do that. Was then frozen out effectively of everything, um, and I think Eddie Howe was disappointed that he hadn't continue to play for the club and help us through those remaining, I think it was 7 or 9 games, wasn't it?
Mm.
After Operation Restart. So I think he felt let down by him. I think Josh King as well. I'd like to think it was all his own decision why he left the club. Maybe it wasn't. I can't say for that side of thing, but yeah, I think he was felt very let down. But when you look at what Eddie Howe did, even in the early days when we was on in League Two,
Mm.
um, we, he hit the ground running. Whereas, say for example, if we had given Jimmy Quinn time,
Mm.
like Arsenal have Mikel Arteta, we'd be in the National League. We might not even have a club,
Yeah.
put nicely. So
It's a risk. You're right. It is a risk. You can only maybe give time to the right manager, I guess, or the manager
mhm.
you believe's the right manager, maybe.
You could have said that maybe Jason Tyndall deserved a little bit more time, but
Mm.
when we see, I was quite critical, after the Reading game of the players. I was disappointed in their performance. Well, not so much the result, um, but more the manner of that result. That really, really disappointed me. But it was the Sheffield Wednesday game where we got beat 2-1. Then that was it really showed that we had to make a change because the players just didn't seem to understand what they were being told.
Mm.
Also, Jason Tyndall made three to be honest, he did this in the Reading game as well. He made three substitutions, and you thought, what the hell is that? They didn't make
We've said
any
that about
sense.
Arteta a few times.
Yeah, it just was pure desperation. And, I went from criticizing the players, why don't the players play for the club, play for the crest and the shirt, to thinking, well, maybe Jason Tyndall isn't the right man. Um, so I guess there's a fine line
Yeah.
there. There is a fine line there. But, well, we've been quite lucky. Eddie Howe hit the ground running, and, that's why he was so successful. Um, of course, he went to Burnley.
Yeah.
We had Lee Bradbury who come in. He hit the ground running. To be fair, he did a good job. And the following season, it tailed off. Decided to make the change, and then we brought in Paul Groves, who lasted a short period of time. So I guess we've been very, very lucky to have a manager that's hit the ground, been so
Mm.
successful so quickly. And, if Scott Parker hadn't got us out the championship, I don't think he would be here at the start of the season.
No, possibly not. Possibly not. I mean, but again, he's had success fairly quickly in his Bournemouth managerial career, hasn't he? Got you promoted first time of asking, which was what his job would have been, and it's just
Yeah.
now, I suppose, a matter of can he keep you up this season, which is the next kind of aim, isn't it? I guess. I mean, talking about, we started the season 2 games in. You had a really good performance and result against Aston Villa at home, and then
Yeah.
I suppose the inevitable defeat of Manchester City, like
Yeah.
most teams have. But that's nothing to worry about, is it? Everybody
No.
loses to them. What are your expectations for the season? Would it just literally be just staying up, or do you think you can maybe do better than that? Because some teams have come up, and a lot of your players would have known the Premier League before. So, do you think you can do better than just stay up, or do you think that's got to be just the aim? 17th place will do.
17th place will do. I'll be happy with 17th. I think it's going to be tough. I think there is 3 teams worse than us in the league. The teams I've got earmarked, I did say Leeds at the start of the season, but actually, I think Leeds, from seeing what they've done so far, look
Mm.
pretty decent. I think those teams are Fulham. I think the wheels will fall off if they get any injuries, especially if they lose Mitrovic. I think Southampton don't really, strike me as a decent side. Aribo looks okay, but Ward Prowse. What happens if something happens to Ward-Prowse, or
Mm.
if somebody signs him. I know he's been rumoured with Arsenal, hasn't he, at times?
Yeah, he has, yeah.
Yeah, please sign
Everyone's rumoured to come to Arsenal, though, isn't
him.
it? So, yeah.
Yeah, please sign Ward-Prowse, because that'll be a weight off our mind. That'll be one of the relegation spots filled, definitely.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And the other team, I think, is Everton, because um,
Mm.
and I feel for the Everton fans. They it looked like at one point they were getting things right,
Mm.
and they were going to start breaking in and pushing
Mm.
maybe towards that top six.
Yeah,
And it's not really happened for them. Um, I think Benitez was maybe a bit of a foolish decision. Um,
yeah,
Lampard's not done badly. I think he did a good job to get them across the line last season,
yeah,
but they're under all these embargoes as well. I believe. I think that s- they've got to sell before they can buy at such a
yeah.
rate, to compete with even ourselves. I think they're going to be in desperate trouble, Everton. So they're the three that I think will finish above. Can I see a fourth? I don't know if I can really at this moment in time, but I think 17th. I'll be happy with that. But the transfers that we've made, to
Mm.
be fair, have been good. There was that concern, of course, through that centre back position. We've got Senesi in. We've got Marcus Tavernier, who's come in from Middlesbrough.
Mm.
To be fair, when he joined, I wasn't really overstruck. I thought, wow, is he that? We should be focused on centre back. He's another midfielder. We've already bought in Joe Rothwell. We've already got, and this is one thing I will say about Bournemouth, even when we were in the Championship, we had a Premier League midfield. We've got Lewis Cook, Philip Billing, Jefferson Lerma. We've got Ryan Christie on the right-hand side. The first season, we did have Arnaut Danjuma of Villarreal,
Mm.
um, you know, and he was outstanding. Jaden Anthony stepped up to the plate last year, so I thought, well, do we really need him? We've got Ben Pearson as well, if we want to really muck in and, you
Mm.
know, put put our weight about a little bit. Um, but he's done very, very well. So his transfer dealings so far, I would say, even though it was a little bit slow, are good.
Yeah, and I suppose that's maybe going to be the deciding factor at the end of the season, isn't it? I guess whoever had the best transfer win. I mean, Terry's got a comment. He said you forgot about Man U. Obviously at the moment they are bottom of the table, of course, but I'm sure
Yeah,
they're not there.
yeah.
I'm sure that they're not going to be down there all the way
You
through,
know
are
what?
they?
That would be funny, wouldn't it?
It would be funny, yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to happen. Is it?
No. Although saying that, got beat 4-0 by Brentford, and let's be honest, I watched that game, and um, to be fair, they were a joke.
Hmm.
If I was a Man United fan, I'd be absolutely furious at this moment in time, with what's going on with that club as well. There's a
Yeah,
lot of players that just don't seem to be pulling their weight. I thought that they got rid of most of those with Pogba going, but no, haven't even. It seems like there's a bit of a problem there, and of course, they've got Liverpool as well. So
yeah.
you'd expect them to still be rooted to the bottom after 3 games, which you know be even funnier, to be fair. But
It would be funny, of course. I think everyone would enjoy that if that was to happen, but I don't think it will. I've got to be honest. I think they've
yeah,
got, although they have got a lot of problems. You said, obviously they've got a new manager just come in, and I'm sure that it's going to take him time, but I'm sure he will improve the results. They've got some good players at the end of the day. We know they've got some top quality players. It's just getting them together and working as a team. And if he can do that, they'll be fine. But let's
yeah,
enjoy it while we can, because it's
mm,
not often we see Man United at the bottom of the league, is it? So
no.
let's enjoy the next couple of weeks and hope that it lasts a little bit longer. But I'm sure they're not going to be in a relegation fight when the
I've got a
season.
quick question for you as well, Richard, because of
No,
course
go
Patrick Vieira, after that
on.
game against Crystal Palace, which you won 2-0, come
Mm,
out and said Arsenal are title challengers this season. Now, I personally think you could well be. Liverpool haven't started particularly very well.
no.
Jesus looks like it looks like the shackles are being taken off him. He's
Mm,
looked looks like he's able to play with a lot more freedom at Arsenal than he was at Man City. Do you agree with Vieira? Surely, if a man like that, who's got Arsenal in his blood, can say something like that. What do
I
you
mean,
think?
is he saying that to put more pressure on Arsenal? So if we don't win the league, they'll sack Arteta and give him the job. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, yeah, there is that possibly.
I mean, I personally would. I think it's too early. I mean, Jesus has already made a massive difference. Zinchenko as well. They're both winners, and you can
Yeah.
see the quality that they've brought in. And I think that if our first choice 11 could be fit and play all the 38 league games, I think we'd have half a chance, because I don't think there's many first 11s that are better than ours. Manchester City, obviously,
Yeah.
and Liverpool, if they're all fit, they've got a few issues at the minute as well. But I certainly feel if our first 11 could be fit all through the season, I'm not saying we could win the league, but I think we could be there or thereabouts, challenging somewhere in there. I think we're a little bit short in squad depth at this moment in time. You mentioned the midfield before, and yes, I would like to see one or two players come in there to strengthen that area of the team. We look like we've got goals in us finally. We've had a couple of seasons where we haven't been scoring enough goals, but this season with Jesus, we've got Fabio Vieira still hasn't played yet because he's just been injured. I think we've got goals in this team. We do look a little bit vulnerable at times defensively, one or two mistakes that we're making, but I think overall we're fairly solid at the back most of the time. And yeah, if everybody's fit, I think we'll have a really good season. But my worry is we've got the Europa League. It's a lot of games to play. We always get injuries to key players. And if that happens again, then I don't think, I think we're just going to be, ultimately, I think this season we are battling for a place in the top four again. That's what we're battling for. Everybody's improved their squad. If Chelsea get a striker in, they're going to be difficult to catch. Tottenham have improved. They were above us already. We've made good signings and we're improving, but have we improved enough to close that gap now? Right now, I'm not sure. But if we finish top four, that'll be a good season for me. And anything more than that, a title challenge would be amazing. But I'm not getting carried away by 2 wins out of 2. And even if we've got a few, and no disrespect to you guys tomorrow, but we've got a few favourable fixtures coming up. Games that we would expect to pick up points from in the next couple of weeks. So I'm not going to get carried away even if we win them all, because it's a long season. But yeah, I think Patrick Vieira, he's an Arsenal fan at the end of the day. He's an Arsenal legend.
Yeah.
Hopefully we will, but I'm not sure if this season is the season that it's going to happen. I think maybe we need another year or so, get a couple more players in, and strengthen that squad. A little bit more depth is needed, and then we can maybe look at challenging maybe next season, possibly. Who knows? If we get in the Champions League this year, that's the time to sort of grow, isn't it? I think it would be. I know Leicester won the league from nowhere, didn't they? And won it one season. And we would have to do something similar. Everything would have to go our way. We'd have to have very few injuries. Bearing in mind Leicester didn't have Europe that season. They basically gave away the cup competitions to concentrate on the league. And who knows? But I would be amazed if this year was our year to challenge for the title. Personally, I think next year is more realistic, and getting in the top 4 this year would be a success. Terry says, yes, please bring in Uncle Pat. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure one day Patrick Vieira will be manager of Arsenal. One day he will. How soon or how long that will take, I'm not sure. But I'm sure one day he will be manager of Arsenal. And I'm sure we would all love it, especially if he continues doing what he's doing at Palace, because he's doing a great job, isn't he? He's a very good manager. We've got a comment here from Delboy Gala TV. He says, Craig, how do you think Mark Travers will do this season? Obviously, Del's Irish, so he's got that in obviously Mark Travers. How do you think he'll do this season?
I think he's a solid goalkeeper. He should be the Irish number 1. Some of his saves are outstanding. If you watch that game against Spurs, which we won 1-0, to be fair, Spurs did self-implode a little bit. They went down to 9 men, if I'm correct in thinking. Nathan Ake scored the goal, but they did put us under a bit of pressure, and Mark Travers handled that, amicably. He was brilliant. And throughout the championship season last year, again, he was solid pair of hands that, looked assured. He was confident with him. He made a very, very good save in that big game against Forest as well, which, if he hadn't made that, could have been a different story altogether. So I think he'll be successful this year. Do I see him going anywhere else after this year? I don't think so. I don't think he'll be taken off us like Ramsdale did. I think he'll probably stay with the club. Be it we stay up or go down. But he's a good young goalkeeper and he's got a great career ahead of him. And yeah, I think he'll do very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen an awful lot of him so far, but what I've seen is he has looked good in the brief games I've seen him play. He's looked pretty decent. And I think he's had a fairly decent start to the season as well. I know he couldn't do much about the goals last week against Man him that really, but I mean, he didn't have a bad game, did he, last week either? So
No.
I'm sure he'll have a good season. And again, as we said before, maybe that again could be it's very small margins, isn't it? For a club like Bournemouth to stay up this year, it's going to be very small margins, and maybe a goalkeeper in good form who maybe wins you 5, 6, 7, 10 points could be the difference with going up and staying down, couldn't it? So he's going to be really important, isn't he, for you this season? And yeah, let's hope he does well. I'm sure he will. And yeah, another young goalkeeper that's got hopefully a bright future ahead, I would say.
What's good as well is that we've signed Neto as well from Barcelona, and he's not wanting to come into the club as to play second fiddle to Mark Travers. So hopefully that will push his development on as well.
Yeah.
Whereas before, last season, we had Nyland, who then ended up at Reading and made an absolute terrible. It just completely messed up a back pass in their game against Luton. And we had Freddie Woodman in on loan, and to be honest, he didn't really do much and didn't shine when he did get the odd chance. So the good thing is he's got a solid goalkeeper behind him now who will hopefully push him on, because he'll want to keep that number one place. He deserves to keep that number one place. But he knows any slip ups, and Neto is going to be there waiting. And, I think you allow Neto to get that number one spot, it'll be difficult to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult for any club to keep two very good goalkeepers. I mean, we had the same problem, obviously, with Bernd Leno, who lost his place to Aaron Ramsdale. Last season, we had two very, very good goalkeepers, and you're fortunate to be in that position. Obviously, Bernd Leno wasn't going to stay and be number two for another season. He's obviously gone off to Fulham. So it's difficult, isn't it, to keep two very good goalkeepers for very long, because one of them, the one that's not playing regular, wants to play and feels he should be playing regular, will end up wanting to go somewhere to get that, won't he, I suppose? So Terry says there, Craig, do you think Travers will develop a backache after playing us tomorrow and picking the ball out of the net? I mean, we'll come on to maybe score prediction a bit later. I mean, we said that last week against Leicester, and we scored a few in that game, so we'll have to see. Maybe we're in good form at the minute, but we'll have to see how tomorher.
I think this will be a tougher game than a lot of people
will
expect.
I mean, we've not got the best record down at your ground, actually. I know we've only lost once, but it's a very tight game. A few draws. That 3-3 draw. Do you remember that one when you were 3-0 up?
Yeah.
And I know you went down to 10 men and we got it back to 3-3. But
yes,
it's never been a really easy ground for us. We've never had an easy game there ever. So it's always tricky. So I'm not expecting anything other than the same tomorrow. You started the season. Well, you're unbeaten, I think, 11 games at home as well. So it's going to be a tough game for us. I mean, we'll come on to that in a little while. There was a comment here, actually, I saw earlier on, actually, from Shane here. He says, "Hi, lads. Have any prominent players played for both clubs in the past?" Well, funnily enough, last season, what I always used to do was go have a little section of players that have played for both clubs. But once you've played every team before, that feature becomes a little bit redundant. But we've not played Bournemouth, so what I did actually put something together. So there is one or two. So what we'll do is we might as well have a quick look at that now, actually, as Shane's brought it up. So why don't we just have a quick look at this? And obviously, there was three there in that picture, which I'm sure two of them certainly everybody will know. We've obviously mentioned this guy already, of course. Aaron Ramsdale, who, as you said, had a great season with you guys, and he's doing pretty well at Arsenal, let's be honest. Also, of course, an Arsenal, I don't know if you'd necessarily call him an Arsenal legend, but certainly a big fan's favourite at Arsenal as well, of course, Jack Wilshere. What did you make of Jack Wilshere at Bournemouth? Because I know he had a few injury issues, and he wasn't at his best, was he? But what did you make of him at Bournemouth?
Well, let's judge it over to two spells. So the first spell, which was in our second season in the Premier League, he was outstanding. Kept, you know, everything was going through him. He was a big part of the reason why we finished ninth.
Mm.
Of course, he come back
Yeah.
in our first season in the Championship and just seemed a little bit off the pace. Didn't seem to. He seemed to have lost a little bit of that edge that made him so good. And it's shame. It's sad to see. Of course, he's recently retired as well.
Yeah.
He went to a team. Was it Norway or?
I think it was something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Which he tried to get himself fit, I think, didn't he, as much as anything
yeah.
else, and it didn't quite work, did it? But
And it's a real shame because
yeah,
during that second season in the Premier League, just thinking back to it would have been 2016, 2017. He was so good. That whole squad that season was so good. We upset a lot of clubs, a lot of big clubs. The only team we haven't beaten is Man City up the top six, and we were doing all the things right. We could have maybe even pushed a little bit higher up. Had things gone a little bit more for us, but ninth was amazing. When you think of where we've been, in our -17 season, we finished, fourth from bottom, and to be honest, that was a miracle that year because we looked nailed on, because there was three teams. There was, of course, Luton deducted 30 points, which was scandalous, really. And
yeah,
then there was ourselves and Rotherham. Rotherham got off to quite a good start, so they kept themselves, fairly clear of it. But we didn't. And of course, we messed around with Jimmy Quinn. We got beat by Blythe Spartans in the FA Cup. And yeah, I would say, from where we've been to finish ninth was unbelievable. So, yeah, we could have pushed a little bit further up, but that season was amazing.
yeah, it was. I mean, in the end, actually, Jack Wilshere played over his two spells. He played 44 games for Bournemouth, actually,
Yeah.
which quite a few games. He only played 197 for Arsenal, which doesn't seem that many, but it's so many injuries that he had. He missed basically 2 whole seasons due to injuries, one thing or another. So his career never quite reached the heights we all thought it was going to, which was a shame because he was a very, very talented player, as we know. He should have been one of England's top players, shouldn't he? Really,
Yeah.
But injuries ended up, unfortunately, ending his career earlier than it should have done. Do you remember this guy?
Ooh, that's a blast from the past, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He actually played a lot more games for Bournemouth than he did for Arsenal, funnily enough.
You probably, if you name him, I'll probably get it.
His name's Ryan Gary.
Yes, yeah. No, it's it now.
Yeah, he played 76 games for Bournemouth, actually. He scored 3 goals between 2007 and 2011. He only played twice for Arsenal, both in the League Cup. It came through Arsenal's system. But yeah, he's probably more well-known for Bournemouth. It was a while ago, obviously, that he played.
I'll admit, Matt, my co-host on Up the Cherries and All Departments would get that in one shot. He would know straight away. Yeah, that's right, Gary. It takes a little bit.
No, that's fine. There was a goalkeeper that may be another goalkeeper, actually. I don't know whether it might have been a little bit before your time, perhaps, when he played for Bournemouth. I don't know if you remember him.
Vince Bartram.
It is Vince Bartram, yeah.
In fact, if you want to watch an interview with Vince Bartram, and it's a very interesting one as well, because he does talk about Arsene Wenger. The day Arsene Wenger walked into Highbury, it is on the channel.
Is it?
And
wow, brilliant!
Yeah. Absolutely lovely guy, Vince Bartram is, and
no. The only thing, I mean, I would say that's not necessarily his fault, but he's probably one of the worst goalkeepers I've seen play for Arsenal, unfortunately. But that's not his fault because we've had so many great goalkeepers. That's the reason. And
He
unfortunately,
was
he's
playing
not.
second fiddle to David Seaman, wasn't he? And that
He
was
was.
always going to be so
Of course it
difficult.
was. Yeah. He only made 11 appearances for Arsenal, so it's probably difficult to judge how good or how bad he was. It's just in those 11 games that he didn't really do enough much to endear himself to the Arsenal fans, unfortunately. But he did play 100. That was where he's probably more famous for. And I will definitely watch that interview because, any interview with a player that's played for Arsenal is great by me. I'm quite happy to listen to him, even if they don't talk about Arsenal, just to find out more about him, really. Because I don't know too much about Vince Bartram. I know he played for Gillingham, I think, as well, later in his career and stuff like that. I don't really know too much other than that about him, really. So that will be interesting. I'll definitely check that out. That will be really good, actually. There's a couple more that I found. I mean, there may be loads of others that I wasn't aware of, but these are another couple that I saw. You may remember this guy.
Oh, Benica Fobe. Yes.
Yeah. Again, he's more famous for playing for Bournemouth. He's more famous for playing for Bournemouth than Arsenal. In fact, he didn't play for Arsenal's first team at all, even though he came through our academy system. And he played 70 games for Bournemouth and scored 11 goals. Yep. So he did pretty well, didn't he? Do you remember obviously much about him? Was he a good player for you guys?
Yeah, he was. He scored some decent goals. Of course, he went. I'm trying to remember how this works. He went and left to go to Wolves, but then they sold him to let him go to Stoke very, very quickly after. It was less than 48 hours afterwards. But yeah, he did. He did do good. Well, he did score some goals in the Premier League as well for us. So yeah, I haven't got a bad word to say about Benica Fobe. He always used to give 110%. Not the world's greatest player. He was always going to be behind Josh King and Callum Wilson. But when he was called upon, he's good.
Yeah, I'll say he never actually played for Arsenal, surprisingly enough. I always assumed that he had maybe played in the League Cup or something like that, but he actually never did play for the first team. But he's obviously he's been around a bit, hasn't he? He's played for a lot of clubs. He said Wolves and Stoke and a few others as well. There are a couple of others which you may or may not remember. Some of them are not that long ago, actually. Do you know this guy?
Oh, that. No, I can't remember.
I mean, to be fair, he played one game for Arsenal and he only played 8 games for Bournemouth on loan, so he wasn't the most well-known player. It's Frank Simak, American international.
Oh yes, yep.
He maybe had a bigger career in the lower leagues. I mean, he probably played for Bournemouth when you guys were probably in one of the lower leagues. But yeah, he didn't play much for either team actually. But he did make one first team appearance for Arsenal in the League Cup in 2004, I think it might have been. In our invincible season, I think he played in the League Cup, one of them games there. And there's another one maybe sort of similar, although actually this guy played quite a few more games for Bournemouth, so you may possibly remember him. He only played once for Arsenal. Can you remember him? Again, it's a while ago.
Yeah, it is a while ago. You're gonna have to tell me again.
It's John Spicer.
Yeah, like I say, Matt would get this, all day. Yeah, Matt would be able to say, "Oh yeah, that's, he's the one that remembers everybody."
He actually made 50. He made 50 appearances for Bournemouth, scored 8 goals, so he actually didn't do too bad. And he only played once for the Arsenal first team. Again, that was in a League Cup. There seemed to be a few young players that came through Arsenal's academy system that played the odd game here and there and moved on. And a few of them seem to have gone to Bournemouth at some stage in their career for some reason. There was only one other one that I found, which is going back a long time, probably long before your time, even before my time. But you may well remember his face. He did make 2 appearances for Bournemouth, actually, later in his career.
Yeah, that's before my time.
Yeah, it's Charlie George. I mean, he's a famous Arsenal player, won the double in 71.
Yeah.
He actually played twice for Bournemouth in 1982. I think that might have been on loan right at the end of his career, actually. He had played 179 games for Arsenal, scored 49 goals, and so won the double in 71. So, yeah, that was a little bit of an older one, that one. And they say he won't be known. In fact, I didn't even know he played for Bournemouth until I was researching it and found out he had. So there may be one or two others. So if anybody in the chat knows any other players that played for Bournemouth and Arsenal, please let us know. They're the only ones I could find. There may well be some others perhaps some loans. Possibly Arsenal may have sent some other players on loan to Bournemouth, probably over the years. I'm not really sure. But anyway, as I say, some of them were quite good, weren't they? Which is always nice. Obviously tomorrow, then obviously it's the game, isn't it? The late kick-off on a Saturday. I mean, what are you kind of expecting ahead of the game? Do you think there'll be too many team changes from Bournemouth? I mean, I listened to Scott Parker's press conference. I don't think there's any sort of fresh injuries that you've got, is there?
No, so missing from the game against Man City was Jordan Zamora. He was out with COVID. We was also missing Dominic Solanke through an injury. Although saying that, I don't think it's a bad injury. So I think we expect both of them back, and I expect them both to play. The other change I think they will probably make is Lerma will probably go into midfield, and I think Senesi will play. I think Senesi will get his full debut. He did come off the bench against Man City. Wasn't a long period of time. Showed a few glimpses, but I think he will get his full debut at the back.
I mean, do you still think that you're going with a three at the back? Because you've been playing three at the back, haven't you, this season? Is that right?
Yeah, which was a bit of a surprise to me when I saw that lineup against Aston Villa. I thought, well, what's Scott Parker doing here? But it worked. It worked, and then you've got Smith and Zamora, a little bit more advanced, but can still drop back. See, that's the good thing with that sort of formation is so if we are under pressure, we can drop back, but we can also bring forward, and that's what's so good about Zamora. That's what's so good about Zamora is he does go forward, even as a left back, as that was his position at times last season. He will go forward, make things happen, in the attacking half. So, I think we will probably go three at the back. I think we'll probably do what we did against Aston Villa. I just think it'll be a couple of personnel changes. I think it'll probably be Kelly, Senesi, and I think Metham, who will be playing as back three. I think Zamora on the left-hand side, Adam Smith on the right, and then you'll have the midfield. I think Ben Pearson will be quite an interesting one, whether or not he gets the nod. They might decide to drop him and put Lerma back into that position. You'll have either side. You'll have on the left hand side. You'll probably have Tavernier. On the right, you'll have Ryan Christie. And then I think we'll probably play one up front. It's really a bit of a toss-up between, I think it'll be Lerma, and then I think it's a bit of a toss-up between Billing or Lewis Cook. I would probably go Lewis Cook for this game. Just that, I think he will offer a little bit more, but then again, he might go for Ben Pearson, have Ben Pearson and Lerma in the centre, and which will mean that there'll be a lot of meaty challenges in that centre. And that Solanke will start up top if he is fit. The thing with Solanke is he will pull the ball back and be able to bring other players in. He's not a greedy striker. He scored 30 goals last season.
Yeah.
But he's not a greedy striker. And we'll set up other players. So I think that probably be how we line up. But knowing Scott Parker, it'd probably be very different. That's what I would play anyway.
No, that's what I mean. In terms of Arsenal, obviously we've mentioned Gabriel Jesus already, and obviously he's in great form. Which other Arsenal players are you kind of worried about maybe tomorrow that you think could maybe cause you the most problems?
Martinelli, most definitely. I think Zinchenko, has done well since he's joined from Man City as well. I think Ramsdale, will be solid at the back. It will take something special to beat him. But I think those are the players that would jump out to me. Jesus is is
Yeah.
somebody that we've got to keep quiet. And I think that'll probably be Senesi's first task is right, okay, because Senesi is a good defender. From Feyenoord, we've signed him for about 15 million, and he scores some fantastic goals. It's well worth it looking on YouTube just to see the goals that Senesi does actually score as well. But he's tough tackling, and he rarely puts a foot wrong. He's an Argentine international, so
Mm.
yeah, I would expect that he's going to be tasked with keeping Jesus quiet.
So do you think that's going to be perhaps key to Bournemouth getting a result? Then is your ability to stop Jesus from having much influence on the game? Do you think that's
Yeah,
probably the key, or would you maybe look elsewhere? Obviously, midfield could be a key area as well, couldn't it?
I think um, I think if you say that ask what is Arsenal's weakest area of the pitch, I would say it's definitely the midfield. Um, I would say that we've got, and we did have a Premier League midfield last year, and during our time in the Championship. So that's probably our strongest area. Plus, we've made these other additions as well. So I think that's probably where it will be won. But let's be fair, you know, Jesus only needs one opportunity and he can put it in the back of the net. So I think keeping him quiet, along with, controlling that midfield and maybe, offering something a bit different. Maybe that might be why he would go with Ben Pearson and Jefferson Lerma in centre. Could be what we need to do to get a result out of tomorrow's game.
I mean, obviously, with all that in mind, then what is going to be your score prediction for the game?
Um, I've been doing this with everybody. I'm going to give you my head and my heart. So my
Okay.
head is saying a 2-1 Arsenal win. I still think you probably got a little bit too much for us. You are one of the big six, and I think it will be very, very difficult. Yeah, any points against the big six are bonus points in my view.
Hmm.
Um, Heart 2-1, 2-1 Bournemouth. I think he's going to be. I don't think he's going. It's going to be. Some people have said to me, "Well, it's going to be 5-0, 4-0 to Arsenal." I can't see that. I can't see that, and I would be surprised. I think it's going to be tight. Um, but if I was to put money on it, I would probably say, my money is safer putting it on Arsenal to win than my own side, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Arsenal are going to start the game favourites because of the start we've had to the season, and the fact that Bournemouth have just come up to the Premier League. So, but I actually think that it's not always the best time to play a promoted team early in the season because they've still got momentum from going up, and obviously you won your first home game as well. I think it is going to be a difficult game for Arsenal, but yeah, I do think Arsenal will have a little bit too much in the end. I just think that the way that we're playing at the minute, I think Jesus is going to be the key player in the game, and I think that if he does, if he can get a little bit of space, as you say, he's likely to cause some either score a goal, set up a goal, or do something, isn't he? Martinelli's playing well, as you said. So I just think we've got a little bit too much quality in the attacking end of the pitch, and I think we will probably win. I'll go 2-0 to Arsenal. I think maybe it'll be quite a similar game to Crystal Palace. I think we might score maybe early as you go. I think you'll put us under pressure, get a few corners and cause us a few problems, then we'll maybe break out on a counter attack and get a second goal later on in the game, maybe to seal it. I think it could be a similar sort of game to Crystal Palace, possibly. Terry is always quite confident. You have to get used to Terry. He says, I think it's going to be a close game, 5-0 to us. Yeah, I mean, you see, 5-0 is quite conservative for Terry, so he does think it's going to be a tight game. He'd normally say 8-0 or something like that. So,
Really?
so 5-0, he thinks you're going to give us a bit of a game anyway, which is nice. I don't think it's going to be that sort of a game, if I'm totally honest. It never has been. We've never had an easy game down at your spot ever. It's always been a tight, tough game, hasn't it? A lot of draws have happened and stuff like that. So, but I do think maybe we're in great form. We're in a good place at the minute, and I think we've got the quality to win. So I do think we will win, but I think it's going to be a competitive game, definitely. And it's going to be. I'm sure it'll be a good game as well. I don't like the 5:30 kickoffs, though. Do you? Are you a fan of
No, he's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Really.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. to be honest, I don't like the early ones either. I
No, I
don't
don't.
like the 12:30s.
No.
On a Sunday, this is, it's a different story. A 4 o'clock kickoff live on Sky, but the 5:30 kickoffs, no, not really.
No. No.
I
I'm
can
not.
see why they do it. People watching Soccer Saturday and then turn straight onto the game,
Before
but
they go down the pub, I suppose, as well, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I don't like it. It's sort of, I'd rather eat my dinner at that sort of time rather than having to sort the game out. Anyway, it is what it is. We have to have these kickoffs every so often, don't we?
Yep.
Terry says there, Saka's due a good game to watch out. Yeah, no, he is. He's been quiet at the start of this season. Really, for him, he hasn't been firing quite yet. So he's probably due a game at some point. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll have to see. But I think we're all excited just to see Jesus, really, because every week at the minute he's so exciting to watch. So he's the one we'll be looking out for. But I think it'll be a good game. And I say, we'll see what happens. Well, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Craig. Thanks a lot for coming on. I know it was quite short notice in the end to get it all sorted out. But
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard.
thanks for coming on. Just give your channel another shout out again before you go, please.
Yep, no problem at all. So the channel is called Up the Cherries in All Departments. It's UTCIAD. You can probably see it just in the little bubble there. So we've got interviews on there as well with the likes of Vince Bartram, and that is a really, really interesting watch from an Arsenal perspective, because he does go into his time at Arsenal, and believe it or not, he could have ended up at Leicester before going to Arsenal. Which I don't know if you was aware of.
No.
Well, he tells you it all in there. So, that's a really interesting one. We got that Harry preview show and Steve Fletcher, Steve Cook, Efan Akuku as well. Name from the
Wow.
past, and then
Yeah.
also some other quite interesting interviews. We've had Mark Helsey, former Premier League referee,
Oh,
on.
yeah.
And
Wow.
believe it or not, David Beckham's agent.
Really?
David
Wow.
David Beckham's agent. So yeah, he was quite an interesting man to listen to, and I think you have to watch that and make up your own mind about that. But a gentleman called Andy Banal.
Okay. I mean, he couldn't get David to appear himself then, or would that cost too much money?
That probably costs too much money, and I think I don't
Yeah.
think he's his agent. No, wow, I know he's not his agent anymore. So,
Oh, isn't he? Oh, okay.
no.
Well,
But
that'd
he's
be another interesting. That'd be a very interesting one as well. Actually, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of great stuff on there actually to be looking at. So,
It's quite interesting because, of course, I asked him about the Ryan Fraser situation, and I said, could that have been caused by the agent? And he said, I don't think so. He said, I know so. So,
wow. Okay.
it was quite revealing. But yeah, I won't go any more into that because there's loads of stuff on there, and I don't want to. But it's a really, really interesting interview, that one.
No, I mean, it looks like there's some great stuff on there actually. And now we've had a few of the players that play for Bournemouth and Arsenal. Maybe see if you can try and get some of them on as well. Maybe some of the other ones. And you've got Vince
Yeah,
Bartram already. Maybe try and get maybe Benica Fobe or someone like that to come on. That'd be good.
yeah, Benica Fobe or Ryan Gary. We're
Yeah.
contacting a couple of players at the moment, so hopefully that list can only get bigger, really.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. I mean, it's
Yeah,
always nice. I say it's always nice to speak to ex-players, isn't it? Actually, you do get a good,
yeah,
you do get some good insight
yeah.
into their career and stuff, don't you? So,
Although saying that, when I do speak to him, I normally turn the light on before. It's got very dark here all of a sudden. When it should, well, yeah, it should still be a little bit lighter than this.
well, I mean, I suppose it gets a bit darker a bit earlier nowadays, doesn't it? I
Yeah,
suppose
it
we're
does.
getting into once the football season starts, the nights are drawing in, don't they? Which is the only downside to it, really. Terry says a great show again tonight, Richard and Craig. I hope we don't ruin your weekend too much. There is always next week. Well, we'll see. Let's not get carried away. I always like to keep my feet on the ground, not get too excited before the game because anything can happen. Anyone can beat anyone in the Premier League. We've seen it, and I say we've never had an easy game down at your spot. So I'm not expecting it to be any different tomorrow. So, but definitely check out Craig's channel there because I say it looks like there's some absolutely fantastic content on there to to be looking through. That's going to be really good. I'm definitely going to watch the Vince Bartram interview without a shadow of a doubt, and catch up with his career, because I don't know too much about him actually, other than I say he wasn't one of Arsenal's greatest goalkeepers, unfortunately, but a lot of competition for that particular position at Arsenal over the years. So brilliant. I say thanks a lot, Craig, for coming on. I say enjoy the game tomorrow. Obviously, I hope you don't enjoy it too much, because that might mean that we lose, and I won't really want that. But I hope you guys do stay up actually, because it's you got yourself to be an established Premier League club, didn't you, for all them years, and until finally it caught up with you maybe, and it's nice that you're back. It's a nice friendly club and stuff like that. I'd like to see the ground maybe redeveloped and made bigger attendance and stuff like that. I'm sure they could. You could probably fill your ground with a bigger ground, couldn't you? I'm sure you could.
Definitely. And actually, that's one point with our interview with Eddie Mitchell that's going live on Sunday that he discusses as well, which, that's quite an interesting interview. So, do join us. If you haven't got anything to do at 7:00 on Sunday, join us for that one. It's quite an explosive interview as well. It's interesting. Yes.
Sounds very, very good. We like a bit of that. Loki's in the chat. How you doing, Loki? He's put his score prediction in 3-1 to the Arsenal. Yeah, I mean, that would be, I'm thinking 2-0, so 3-1's a similar kind of score. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's going to be a tight game, and then we'll seal it late on with a counter-attacking goal. That's probably what happened. That's what I think. But anyway, we'll see what happens. So thanks for coming on, Craig. Brilliant. I say, don't forget to check out Craig's channel. Enjoy the game tomorrow. And I say enjoy the rest of the season as well. I'm sure you'll enjoy being back in the Premier League, and ups and downs there'll be, I'm sure. But hopefully, 17th place would be nice, wouldn't it? You'll take that.
I'll take that all day long at the moment. So, fingers crossed. But all the very best to Arsenal as well, and hopefully Patrick Vieira is right.
I hope he's right. I'm not convinced he is at this moment in time. We've only played 2 games. Maybe come back to me maybe February and March time, and then I'll maybe see whether or not I think he might have been right by that point. But,
it might be doing the reverse one at that point as well. So
we'll maybe come back to it then and see, and then we can maybe decide whether Patrick Vieira was right or not. I hope he was, but anyway, I'm not convinced at this time. But it's still early days, isn't it? So we'll see. Let's get tomorrow out of the way first, and let's see how that goes. And I'm sure if we lose tomorrow, then Patrick Vieira won't be talking about title challenges, will he?
No, very true.
I'm pretty sure he won't, but we'll see what happens. But I say it's been an absolute pleasure, Craig. Thanks for coming on at short notice, and enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll hopefully we'll speak again later on in the season.
Great stuff. Sure. Thank you so much, Richard.
And don't forget to check out Craig's channel as well. Speak to you later, mate. Cheers. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
So that was Craig there from UTCIAD as a channel, quite a mouthful, but definitely worth checking out by the sound of it. Some great stuff on there, some great interviews with former players. I say the Vince Bartram one in particular for us Arsenal fans would be worth checking out, won't it? If those of us of a certain age that remember Vince Bartram playing in goal for Arsenal, definitely check that out. I'm back tomorrow for the game. It's 5:30 kickoff, isn't it? So I'll probably be live about 5:15. So I'll have to have dinner early, won't I? Which is a bit of a pain. But anyway, I'll be here for that at 5:15. We'll do all the team news and then go into the watch along with full comments, all that kind of stuff as usual. And then I think Sunday's a night off on the channel, actually. There's been a lot of content on this week, but Sunday's a night off, and then we'll be back, of course, on Monday with the Arsenal review, looking back on the Bournemouth game and looking at, of course, to next week as well, when we're playing Aston Villa, aren't we, next weekend? So all that's coming up, and of course, next weekend we'll have the usual shows as well. The review extra time on Tuesday with Steve and Sean. Melvin's back on Wednesday for the Highbury Matters show. That is fantastic. So make sure you put that in your diary. And also, of course, on Thursday, the Arsenal Social with Adam. That was a great show last night, actually. If you missed it, please check that out as well. The Arsenal Social with Adam and Steve last night. A very, very funny show. That was really good stuff. So definitely check that out. Loads to look forward to on the channel. I'll be back tomorrow for the watch log. Really, thanks to Craig there for coming on. So it was quite a short notice we put this together. Terry says, don't forget to hit the like button before you go. Indeed, if you are enjoying it, please hit the like button. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. I think most of you guys in the chat already haven't yet, but there might be a few people watching. Maybe a couple of Bournemouth fans have been watching. Maybe if you want to subscribe as well. But definitely check out Craig's channel anyway, because it does sound like there's some great stuff over there. And I will be watching, go and watch the interview with Vince Bartram, definitely, because I do remember him. And I'm sure he actually comes from my area as well, where I was born. So that'll be quite interesting as well. So, yeah. So I say thanks to Craig for that. Don't forget, guys, look, enjoy the game tomorrow. If you are going down to Bournemouth, I know there's only, I think, 1,300 away fans, isn't there? So if you are going, enjoy and get behind the boys. I'm sure you will. And hopefully we can get the result. And if we win tomorrow, we'll definitely be top of the league, won't we? Because Man City don't play till Sunday. And they're playing Newcastle away. Let's remember that. That's a tough game for them tomorrow, on Sunday, sorry. They could easily drop points against revitalised Newcastle. And of course, Eddie Howe, the manager, of course, was famous at Bournemouth, wasn't he? So who knows? We could end the weekend on, top of the league on our own instead of being joint top with Man City. So who knows? But let's win our game tomorrow first. I'm not getting carried away just because we've won 2 games. We need to keep it going. And Bournemouth is a tough place to go. It is a tough place. It's always been a tough game for us. But let's hope we can get the job done. And 9 out of 9 would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Top of the league would be very nice. So join me for the watch along. I say 5:15. I'll be going live to get you in the mood for that game. And hopefully, it'll be a really good game, a really good Arsenal performance again, and we can march on. So thanks everyone for watching tonight. And I say, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Terry says, see you tomorrow, and all in the chat. Yeah, see you tomorrow, Terry. Hopefully it'll be a nice, good game for us to enjoy. I'm sure it will. Maybe your 5-0 might come up, mightn't it? It'll come up one day, I'm sure. But we'll see. So I'll be back tomorrow, 5:15. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And don't forget, check out Craig's channel. The link is in the description in the video below as well to his channel. So please check that out, and you won't regret it because that sounds like some great stuff on there. And watch it Sunday if you can. They interview with the former Bournemouth chairman. That would be really interesting, won't it? But the most important thing is you come back and watch this channel as well. So I'll be here to our 5:15 for the big game. And it is a big game, an important game for Arsenal. We need to get another 3 points, don't we? And Jesus may well score some more goals, which would be lovely, wouldn't it? So join me for that. In the meantime, of course, thanks to all you guys in the chat. Brilliant to see you all again. And everybody else for watching. Thank you very much. And hope you've enjoyed it. So give it a like, share, and subscribe. I will see you tomorrow for the game. 5:15 here on over and over and over again. It's Bournemouth against Arsenal tomorrow. It is going to be good, and we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to look forward to it. So I'll see you then. Take it easy, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Come on, you Gunners. Let's do it. 9 points out of 9. Let's go. See you later, guys. Take it easy.